eternal. Oh, the grind is eternal. Mm. Crying on the subway, but now everything is different. Crying on the subway, take the red line into downtown. If I could ever rewind, take the red line into damn. Oh, oh. Lean got me fucked up. But you know, got a show to put on, boys. Can't fucking stop. Lean got me. Oh shit,
up.
Jake Carter in the hip hop Discord is getting commissioned. Oh god damn it! Can't fucking stop. Lean got me. Oh shit, Jake Carter in the hip hop Discord is getting commissioned. Oh god damn it! Can't fucking stop. Lean got me. Oh shit, Jake Carter in the hip hop Discord is getting commissioned. Oh god damn it! Can't fucking stop. Lean got me. Oh shit, Jake Carter in the hip hop Discord is getting commissioned. There we go. Jesus, HQ Christ. Wait, is Dwayne upset that we're blaspheming over here? All right, we'll try and cut that out there, Dwayne. It's just a moment of secret fury that I'd once again forgotten to terminate the YouTube stream. Like I do every morning, I forget something, man. So Jewbird is apparently dating a girl who her dad is high up in the Navy. I'm gonna see how that works out for him right there. I'm sure her dad will. Let's just assume that he's going to just have them fire a barrage of 60 millimeter shells right through the bird's nest. Hell yeah. Fucking restream load. Open a browser. Check. 1, 2. Oh, it's too hot for this. Let's see. Yeah, don't drink an entire bottle of whiskey and then come through trying to edit. But we're going to do it. We will have a shorter stream today, but we're going to try and get through at least a chapter. So we didn't, I don't think we read through this entire chapter the way that we meant to. No, I think we edited chapter 33 and just didn't read through it. Right? I think that's around where we're at. Yeah, I definitely remember. Okay, so let's just read through chapter 33. So this is going to be the second edit. Did I watch WWE? So I have some friends in my board game group that are into wrestling, but like by the time that I saw it for the first time, I was like a grown person, and so I had full command of my faculties. So yeah, it wasn't super compelling for me. I have the same fucking shit happened to me with Star Wars, where like I didn't see it when I was a kid, and by the time like everybody else was all jazzed about it, by the time I got around to like seeing it, I was just like an old man, and I'm like, this is stupid. So I feel the same way when I watch wrestling. I do like to watch MMA, and I like seeing CM Punk just get fucking destroyed. He just got his ass beat 6 ways from Sunday after training for like a year. God. So I enjoyed that part of it. But yeah, I can't really get down. You know, I like the idea of like all the like overarching character arcs, and I like the feuds and everything, and I like people talking shit. But oh god, I can't even fucking read right over here. Uh, too jaded for monomyth. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna feel too jaded for absolutely everything this morning. Like we tied it on a little bit um, on the LRH last night. I went through like a bunch of rye whiskey, and it was like a weird show and everything. And I've been hitting it too hard these holidays. I need to do like a sober January or something like that. What do I see here? I see here's Chad saying, "What's up, dude?" We got Peter Cap out there. That's a whole Saturday morning crew. I ain't seen all y'all in a while there. But yeah, so like we've been making steady progress on this thing. We're up to page 221. So we're definitely like close to a third of the way through this thing. And by close to a third of the way through it, I mean I can't do math in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. We'll need to be like around page 270 or something like that to be a third of the way through it. Just by the way that we keep adding pages and stuff. So 260, but we may have like another 20 pages by then. Good God. Yeah, so where's the story at here? So if you never watched a stream before, I'm Zach Z. Wisey. I'm a science fiction writer from Brooklyn, New York. Hey, how's about you reading my science fiction novel? Nobody talks like it's like a horrible mishmash between New Jersey and Andrew Dice Clay taking one up the ass at the time. Hey, it's fucking terrible. But yeah, I'm not feeling my best at the moment here. I got to figure out how I can sleep longer, right? Like one of the worst things about setting up my schedule like this is I went from waking up at like 6:30 a.m. every morning to waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I just feel like my body still has not adapted. And yeah, I'm getting to bed too late, and I need more exercise is going to be the answer, I think. Eating different, but I digress. So yeah, we've gotten to the point in the story where there's been kind of like a turnaround for Big Freya over here, where her Krav Maga instructor Vitko gave her some advice to. She was having like some insomnia herself, and he gave her some advice. He's just like, "Hey, run your ass around the block until you're tired." And for her, it actually works. Don't actually try that advice because that shit does not work unless you are willing to just drive yourself to absolute exhaustion. And even still, just it's not actually good sleep advice. But in the context of the story, I think it works pretty well for her. You can just imagine this girl like running her ass around the track nonstop. So that's going on at the moment there. Things continue to get weird with the Star Ball. She like woke up to find another can of Ensure just chilling on the kitchen counter. What the fuck is going on with that? Apparently she gave her phone number to this dude, Dan Gregulus. Shout outs to everybody who understands what I'm talking about with Gregulus. That's so ridiculous. So many weird in jokes crammed into the every page of this book there. So I'm looking at the IRC chat over here. Dwayne says, that is BS. He is a turd puncher. Lol, I decimated fools. Heh, freak noify my path. What is Dwayne going on? And then Sage is coming on to Dwayne. God. Oh shit, PCAP, if you're opt-in LRH, topic up the stream. Oh yeah, you are. If you wouldn't mind topicing the editing stream, I forgot to do it this morning. Much appreciated. A fantasy. All right, so we're gonna reread chapter 33. I think we edited that. So what would make me happier? Chapter 33, and then chapter 34 is about dying inside. If you haven't read Dying Inside, it's pretty cool. And I think so we're just gonna do I'm gonna read through chapter 33. We're gonna edit chapter 34, and then we're gonna stop, and I'm gonna go take a fucking nap. Actually, what I'll do is I'll grill up a big old steak. Do wonder if all this primary source material is gonna fuck literary criticism. This book has no chance of any success in terms of literary criticism. It's a book written for science fiction readers, for the most part. Like, there are just so many shout outs to other science fiction books in this story. And it's something that like an editor might tone down or something like that. But yeah, like this is, and in fact, it's not unique to just science fiction. When we get into the parts about music and so forth, the book is not shy about calling out existing musicians and talking about so forth. Maybe that's what you're talking about. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, whew. But yeah, I'm not sure what an editor will have to say about the inclusion of all this stuff there. So another book that was that did quite a bit of this, and it was actually relatively successful, was Among Others by Jo Walton, which told the story of a Welsh girl who got involved in the Fae realm. And that book was just literally like Jo Walton's diary from when she was a kid about all the science fiction books that she read, and disguised as a novel. And it was pretty okay. Like I wouldn't like go out and recommend reading Among Others. I thought it was okay, right? I'm not sad I read it, but I probably would have enjoyed something else a little bit more. I think it's pretty decent. Like definitely, there's an audience that would really like Among Others. And then what else was? Yeah, I accidentally dissed Jo Walton IRL really hardcore one time in a fucking convention, and I had like a bunch of people shoot death eyes at me there because I just said some shit that I didn't realize I did. What do we got here? I mean, all the videos of me editing, explaining what I'm referencing, what my intent was. Oh, that. No one will ever give a shit. I would be astonished if somebody went through and watched all these videos. So we had this idea the other day, maybe yesterday, that it would be really cool if we found like a professional editor who wanted to be YouTube famous, that was willing to just go through and just pick out all the dumb shit that I'm doing right here. Because, oh my God, like, because I think I know what I'm doing, right? But I clearly do not know what I'm doing. And there's got to be a lot of moments where a professional could just come in here and be like, Zach, that's not how this shit works at all. Where I'm like talking about the publishing industry and they're like, what the fuck do you think? Like, how many books have you sold, motherfucker? You know, like, really, there's so much bullshit that I could be called on by somebody who knew what the fuck they were talking about. And it's just sadly going unaddressed. And I'm not immune to the delight in just somebody completely exposing all the stupid things that I think, because that's really where you learn a lot of stuff. But yeah, there is a lot of room, because I mean, if there are like chapters so bad that I'm like eye rolling, what about the things that I don't realize that I can't get away with, right? Where like somebody with like 2 grains of fucking scent, we really like, if we had like a really acerbic old lady come in here, like I don't want to call out the old, like acerbic old ladies I know who are in the publishing industry, but suffice to say that somebody who's been editing science fiction for like 20 years would not put up with a lot of the bullshit that I'm doing right here. And they would have some very harsh words of criticism, but they, you know, we would also come away with like a much better book. There's a lot of people that have a ton of experience. So yeah, I thought about that yesterday. Like it would be cool to have an actual editor come through here. I think it would cost somewhere between $50 and $60 a day to have an editor work on this. Because if you see me spending like 3 fucking hours on something, the editor also has to spend like at least an hour on every page of this. And like an editor at that level wants to make $45, $50. And if you come in the fact, like it would really be nice if they were doing kind of a similar setup to this or whatever. Maybe I just need to start dating like a woman in her 70s. Shout out to Last Night right there. Giving her sex in exchange for editing. But I'm probably not going to do that. Can't stand the smell of mothballs. But yeah, I did have that idea where if there was somebody like super smart that just enjoyed dunking on fake rappers, as it were, or whack science fiction writers, this would be the opportunity of a lifetime. So if you know anybody who is a huge cunt, but also super technically amazing, we would love to get somebody in on that. But I don't know. I don't think my 2-viewer stream is gonna pull that significantly here. All right, did we edit this one? Yeah, this is the one that we're gonna read. All right, enough preamble there. Just fucking rattling on for hours and hours. I don't have a ton of voice either, so. All right. So this is GRAVID, chapter 33. And here, my idea is just to do a complete read-through of this as if we were doing the audiobook. Fortunately, I'm not, because my voice is a little wrecked from last night. But yeah, we're trying to read through without doing too many stops and so forth. We will stop to fix errors that we see. But yeah, this is just a level for polish. What do we got here? Wait, am I legit or a second show? Oh, hell yeah. Shoutouts to PCAP right there. Thank you for setting that topic, and let's get to it. A fantasy. Why did Freya have to be so clever? Why hadn't a fantasy? Why did Freya have to be so clever? Why hadn't she just told the truth? Dan had sounded interested in the book. He was bound to take a look at the fragile phoenix. She'd been so busy trying to keep him from getting fired, she'd forgotten it at the counter. The librarian waved to Freya as she unlocked the front door. Freya had to unclench her jaw to say hi as she walked in. She went straight to the fiction section, her steps seeming heavy in the hushed air. If she texted Dan and asked him not to look at the book, it would definitely make him do exactly that. Any excuse she could come up with sounded crazy. Her only hope was that he'd be too busy to even thumb through it. It was all ruined now. Freya had been looking forward to a morning at the library, perusing the shelves for as long as she wanted. She'd hoped to find enough books to last until the end of November. Now, all she could do was sit at the end of one of the long tables with her forehead against her palm, thinking how she'd messed everything up. A fantasy. At least now she didn't need an excuse to skip the party. She sat there throbbing with embarrassment until finally she was sick of worrying about it. There was nothing she could do about it now, and if she sat here too long, the librarian was bound to come check on her. Freya pulled out her phone and opened her book list. All the books people recommended to Freya were organized in a color-coded spreadsheet on her phone. First was a golden column with the name of the person who recommended the book to her. Author names were in the teal column, titles were in lavender. There was a wide pale blue column at the end where she kept her notes as she read. There was a wide pale blue column at the end where Freya kept her notes as she read. She saved these so she could talk about the book with the recommender when she finished. Freya didn't like the idea of assigning numerical ratings to books, but she would sometimes bold a title when she really liked it. After she talked with the recommender and thanked them, she moved the row to the completed tab. Does that make sense? Like, in the context of it being a spreadsheet, do we need to specify that it's a spreadsheet? It just seems weird. After she talked with the recommender and thanked them, she moved the row to the completed tab. Is it still understood? Yeah, this is still that same paragraph. I think we don't need to specify it's a spreadsheet. Invariably, the person who recommended the book would have another recommendation after that, so the list never ran out. Right now, her open recommendations were, from Mr. Rutteridge, The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, South of the Border, West of the Sun by Haruki Murakami. From Randall, there were Darkness at Noon by Arthur Colister, The L.A. Quartet by James Elroy, The Dark Tower by Stephen King, and A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Finally, Dying Inside by Robert Silverberg. Betty had recommended Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, The Monsters of Templeton by Lauren Groff, The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, and The Golem and the Jinni by Helene Wecker, who, by the way, I say this like every single time, but she is so nice IRL, like really was super nice to me, and I really thought that was a good book. I like that book so much, and I thought it was like such a good book for women that I gave copies of it to like my mom and one of my best female friends. It's just like a really solid story there. Lastly, from Dr. Garbuglio, there was The Fragile Phoenix by Dr. Garbuglio. The library had all of Betty's picks. Freya especially loved the cover of The Golem and the Jinni. And my fucking uvula is hanging down at the back of my throat. It's making it really difficult to read this shit. The library had all of Betty's picks. Freya especially liked the cover of The Golem and the Jinni. She considered not checking. Yeah, like I'm like, yeah, it's fucking with my diction. I sound like I'm reading to a class of third graders. Give me one second. I'm not implying that y'all are third graders. Just that pattern. Ugh. I always wish that I could take like a pill to feel fantastic for 2 hours, so I could do the show and then feel good for the rest of the day. The library had see that's it. That like weird, it's coming in there. All right, let me try and get in the real estate mindset here. The library had all of Betty's picks. Freya especially liked the cover of The Golem and the Jinni. She considered not checking out The Goblin Emperor, but Betty had a good grasp of how much bullshit Freya would put up with in a fantasy novel. She would have never recommended a piece of junk like The Song of Sword. Freya walked along the shelves with a little stack growing beneath her arm as she looked for Mr. Rutteridge's recommendations. These would be more demanding reads than Betty's selections, and Freya only planned to pick one of them. She looked at all three, then settled on South of the Border, West of the Sun. She'd had more than enough solitude lately, and Kundera was supposed to be wrenchingly She'd had more than enough solitude lately, and Kundera was supposed to be wrenchingly depressing. Freya spent her while browsing the paperback carousels and the new arrivals for a bit, before picking up a yellowed 1984 copy of The Void Captain's Tale by Norman Spinrad. Lastly, Freya looked at the books under Randall's name, and again she was only going to pick one. When she read these five recommendations, there would never be any more. The list under his name had been so long once. There was a lot of downtime as a small-town police officer, and Randall was a voracious reader. One by one, she'd whittled his list down until there were just these 5 remaining. He spent a while and for a bit. Yeah, where? How far back is that? Oh, yeah, that's absolutely redundant. Good catch. Freya spent a while browsing the paperback carousels before picking a copy. Oh, yeah, we don't need the new arrivals there either, because that breaks up the action. Freya spent a while browsing the paperback carousels before picking. Freya spent a while browsing the paperback carousels before picking a yellowed 1984 copy of The Void Captain's Tale by Norman Spinrad. Did you have those at your library? The like little carousels that you could turn around and they were full of paperbacks? Hell yeah. Nope, shout out to Meep Sheep right there. Yeah, that's a really good edit right there. I completely missed that because my brain is fried. Lastly, Freya looked at the books under Randall's name, and again she was only going to pick one. When she read these 5 recommendations, there would never be any more. The list under his name had been so long once. There was a lot of downtime as a small-town police officer, and Randall was a voracious reader. One by one, she'd whittled down his list until there were just these 5 remaining. Randall was always the best to talk with after she finished a book. He was always interested to hear what she thought, and she could remember his smile when he'd really enjoyed Randall was always the best to talk with after she finished a book. He was always interested to hear what she thought. Freya could remember the way he smiled when she'd really enjoyed something he recommended, almost as proud as if he'd written it himself. Randall was where she got in her habit of always finishing a book she started. She remembered starting Dune and flaming out 50 pages in. He'd encouraged her to give her Randall had encouraged her to give it another 50 pages, and then when she still didn't like it, he told her to go 50 more, saying she was almost at the good part. She read through the rest, and then didn't stop until she'd read the whole book and then the other 5 books in the series. For 3 whole months, her head was swimming with still suits and sandworms and the tyranny of prescience. For 3 whole months, her head was swimming with still suits and sandworms and the tyranny of prescience. Randall even reread Heretics and Chapter House so that he could talk with her about them. So previously, in that chapter, he dissed Chapter House, Dune, and Heretics, saying that they fell off big time. And they absolutely did fall off big time. Oh, shit. So in the hip-hop Discord, they're discussing like favorite rap beeps of all time. And somebody just brought up Cube and NWA. I think that is a little off topic, but No Vaseline is the absolutely best rap diss of all time. It's not my favorite beef, just in the terms of the duration, because I didn't pay that much attention to it. But that's the best rap diss song ever. You just listen to, that's so good. Shout out to Ice Cube right there. But yeah, everybody's out here in the stream making coffee, just waking up, warming up and everything. I'm doing this every damn morning for 23 days. We're going to hit a month soon. And if I can do this for like a month straight, like waking up when I don't feel well and fucking hungover, and, you know, it's my own fault, obviously. But if I can do all this, then whatever project you've been meaning to do, like, definitely... everybody who's watching this, you know, consider joining up and just working on whatever you've been trying to get done. I don't know if you want to overhaul an engine or do kegels or whatever you want to do. You can do it during the stream. Hell yeah. Let's see. What do we got here? A few months after Randall was gone, Freya had the urge to reread the original book. His hardcover copy was on the bookshelf in the hallway. It was from the Chilton printing. The dust jacket was the John Schoner painting with the flowing title. It was from the Chilton printing. The dust jacket was the John Schoner printing. Schoenher. Is that how you pronounce that? Schoenher. Schoenher. Yeah, I think Schoenher is more... It's like he's showing hair on his asshole. Real talk. All right, so what do we got here? It was from the Chilton printing. The dust jacket was the John Schoenher painting with the flowing title. This was her favorite cover of all the versions she'd seen. It was Freya's favorite science fiction cover. But when she held the book, all she could think about was that But when she held the book, all she could think about was that it had been in her father's hands. His fingers had touched the pages, his eyes had run over the word. His fingers had touched the pages, his eyes had run over the words, and they never would again. She'd put Dune back on the shelf and hadn't read anything for a while after that. So, CJ is inviting Cam to team up and do kegels, and then Cam needs to have kegels explain to what they are. And Peter Cap says it's a muscle group with a sizer. Real talk. Yeah, definitely do those ass kegels with her, Meep Sheep. It'll serve you well. She put Dune back on the shelf and hadn't read anything for a while after that. The memory beat against her, and she said The memory beat against Freya, and she set her The memory beat against Freya, and she set her stack of books down. For a moment, she had the urge to just leave them there and run out of the library. She could hit the pavement and start running until she was far away from this town, far away from everything. Her hand was in her pocket, closing on the star ball. She shut her eyes tight and tried to visualize herself in outer space, sailing silently through the void. Her hand was in her pocket, closing on the star ball. Again, she shut her eyes tight and tried to visualize herself in outer space. So we've done that like sailing through the void line like 3 or 4 times at this point. It's getting kind of excessive. The reader doesn't want to hear that every single time. So Peter Cap is asking if Seije is Grandma Slippy. Absolutely, she is Grandma Slippy. Real talk. So Smithy9 there asks if this is furry stuff. No. Yeah, I don't really understand like the whole fur fag dynamic. Oh, shout outs to Jonah M. Swiller right there. Yeah, I need to figure out what category this should be at Twitch. I think we should move it to the creative thing from just chatting, although we do get like a fair number of people ranging through on just chatting. But yeah, I'm Zach ZYZ. This is my 8th novel, and we've been editing it live for the past 23 days straight every morning. Sadly, there's no furry shit, but there is a lot of fucking at some point. So his name is Rhett Smitham, and then we got Leroy, and then Levi Mullins. And so we got Rhett and Levi up in the chat. Oh, wow. So old school furries like pie are still remaining. I don't know. There's always going to be furries, and you just got to live with it or whatever there. But yeah, and but fret not for all you furries out there. They just made a movie for you. Cats, go see it because nobody else is going to. Now, I'd say this falls like pretty squarely into traditional hard science fiction. It has a very significant focus on the mind and interpersonal relationships. The primary theme of this book is dealing with grief. So yeah, it's a real laugh riot, and it's a fucking blast. So just chatting tends to shuffle out best if you're busty. Creative is probably where they do body painting. So Leroy is apparently dealing with some grief right now. Apparently he dropped his sandwich on the ground and it got hair on it. It's a fucking tear. No, there might be actual grief in there. I'm not trying to make light. Although, I think everybody can relate to having dropped a sandwich that they really wanted to eat and then just swallowing their despair and disgust and eating that sandwich anyway. Oh no, his grandfather died of pancreatic cancer. I think, like if he made it to be a grandfather, good job. That's all that you really got to do in this life. Just make it to where you have grandchildren and then you're done. You know what I mean? Like that's a good amount of life to have on this orb. Anybody who makes it over, I want to say about 50, good job. You fucking did it. That's all I expect anybody to put up with. So let's see. What is Cam going to buy for his mother when they're on speaking? Wait, you're not on speaking terms with your mother? Oh God. Oh God. I hope this isn't over the whole. Yeah. So like actually like a bunch of people in the audience who have dealt with very recent grief. So I will just fess up here. The only grief that I've ever had was like a big long-term relationship crumbling. I've never had like a parent or a loved one that I was really close to die. So I may be getting this all. She's going to want rap approachment. Oh, wow. Rap approachment. I don't even know what that means. PCAP. I assume it's some kind of reconciling. So it's a phase of... it's an establishment or resumption of harmonious relationships. or relations. Oh, that's a really good word here. So shout outs to rapprochement. Let me pronounce rapprochement.
I found this on the web.
All right, let's fucking look at it on the web. Why would you? Let's do it UK style.
Rapprochement.
Rapprochement. Are you fucking serious?
Rapprochement.
Rapprochement. Wow, I'm so glad that
Rapprochement.
rapprochement. That's so wrong. So the rapprochement. Or rapprochement. Okay. Well, I'm super glad that I didn't go around trying to tell everybody rapprochement when it's rapprochement. But she's gonna feel bad calling me gay all these years. So Smithy9 is asking, what's the title of this work? So this is GRAVID. And if you're interested in reading all the chapters that we've edited so far, they're available at www.zachzyz.com. I post every morning on my Twitter at ZachZYZ when we do this thing. Oh, my nose is so itchy. Help. It's driving me crazy. But yeah, you can see not just the edited chapters, but you can see a differential edit of the changes that we made in like a track changes view using the site called Draftable. And I think that's really cool. But yeah, we've been doing this for a long time, and we're making some progress. Normally, I'm not this hungover. I would say that I'm operating at about 75% today, but we're still at it. Fortunately, this is not an important chapter. I mean, they should all be important chapters, but the book is 200,000 words long. Some of the chapters are not as important as others. But this chapter has a couple of goals. One, kind of cementing her relationship with science fiction type stuff. Two, it has like a few poignant notes about how she misses her father, and it establishes the character of Lynn Harris a little bit better through her relationship with her sister right there. Big night on the gear last night. Now I do a radio show on Friday nights, and I didn't want to drink whiskey last night, but then I really did want to drink whiskey last night, and this guy I know in the hip hop Discord got a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, and I had a bottle of Catcher's Rye, and yeah, we just went to it right there. And he woke up at like 2 a.m. this morning, begging for aspirin, and I woke up at like 5 a.m. doing about the same. And I don't know why we do it to ourselves, but everybody's got a hole they're trying to fill. Yeah, my dad says that. He says he won't drink, and then he does. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not a good idea to drink. Like, definitely don't start. But I'm going to try to grapple with my demons a little bit in the new year there. I think it would be productive for... So I'm doing a couple of things here. If you see at the top, the day count right there, 218, that's my current weight. By the end of this, I would like to get it down to about 200. We started off at about 223, and like I fucked up and got Chinese food this week, but we're making progress for the most part. And then I'm also gonna try and narrow down the drinking, which is part of the same goal. I have to drink one more time this year at New Year's Eve. You just have to fucking do it. You can't have fun at a party without drinking. But then after that, I don't have to go to any fucking parties or anything for a long time. So maybe not till whatever. So Leroy 1414, Rye facilitates bad decisions for me more than anything else. All right, well, thank you for the good luck there. Smithy98, good luck on your own projects there. And shout outs to Leroy1414. Yeah, a lot of remarriage and stuff going on in the chat. That's wow. All right, let's get through this chapter, and then I can respond to some of these things. It helped when she opened. Wow. Ooh, when she opened her again. It helped, but when she opened her eyes again, Freya was back in the library, surrounded by the smell of old books and furniture polish. She was stuck here on Earth. No matter where she went, the memories would follow her. Freya picked her books back up and walked through the shelves, looking at Randall's books. The library didn't have the omnibus edition of all four. Oh, by the way, yeah, fantastic books right there. So his mom left his brother and dad when he was 4 and ran away with another woman. Haven't seen her since. Hell yeah, that's a good backstory right there. You should use that. Freya picked her books back up and walked through the shelves, looking at Randall's suggestions. Looking at Randall's recommendations. The library didn't have the omnibus edition of the 4 James Elroy books, and she didn't want to carry 4 separate books. All the copies of The Dark Tower were checked out, and King was kind of hit or miss for Freya anyway. Darkness at Noon sounded interesting, but the title reminded her too much of the black sky in her dreams. The black sky of her dreams. Wizard of Earthsea wasn't on the shelf, even though the computer said it was. That left Dying Inside. The library's copy was a battered 1972 edition with the red and black dust jacket sealed with ancient yellowed laminate. It had a pocket at the back for when they'd used checkout cards, but there was no slip in it. Freya had a thought, and she took her stack of books up to the checkout counter. She had to wait for a second while the librarian was helping an older woman who'd gotten confused by a pop-up on one of the library computers. The librarian had very short hair. She couldn't have been much older than her early 40s, but it was already mostly gray. She wore a long-sleeved shirt with a few tattoo lines visible around her collar and peeking out at her wrists. Freya thought there was a good chance this was Lynn Harris's older sister. There was a strong resemblance. Spoiler, it's Lynn Harris's older sister. Checking out? She asked, and at once her eyes shot to the stack of books, noting each title. Yes. I had a question, though. Do you guys keep track of who checks each book out? We do. There are records for all the books in our collection, the librarian replied. Oh, that's great. Freya slid Dying Inside out from the middle of the stack and handed it over. Can I see if this book was checked out by someone? I'm sorry, but we don't release that information. We don't want people to be afraid others will look up what they've been reading. Okay, so that should be a period right there. I'm sorry, but we don't release that information. We don't want people to be afraid others will look up what they've been reading. The woman's expression was a little severe, but her tone was polite. Now Freya was almost sure she was related to Lynn. They talked alike. Even if it's family? I just wanted to see if my dad checked out this book. Even family, unless it's for a child under the age of 12. Oh, okay. Never mind, Freya said, feeling dumb for asking. She slid her library card across the counter. The librarian ran it through the barcode reader and was about to hand it back when she hesitated. Her eyes went from the card to Freya, and for a second Freya wondered if she was in trouble or something. Then the librarian scanned the inner back cover sticker on Dying Inside. She typed something in on her terminal. Her eyes were darting from side to side as she read. Your dad checked this out 11 years ago, on September 23rd. He returned it on October 9th. Did you want me to look up the others? There was a catch in the librarian's voice as she spoke. Of course she knew about Randall. It was a small town. No, that's okay. It was just this one. It's one of Silverberg's best. I hope you enjoy it, the librarian said quietly. The librarian quickly checked out the rest of the stack. Her bottom lip was tight as she handed Freya back her card. Thank you, Freya said, feeling awkward. She took her stack of books and found a place to read where she couldn't be seen from the checkout desk. Okay, cool. So what do we got there? Shout out to Leroy1414 who says, I'll come watch another time. Have a good day. Yeah, just feel free to. So Jonah M. Swiller says, is this entire thing written and you're just editing now? Yes. We have completed the first draft of the thing, which clocked in at about, I think it was originally like 750 pages. And as we've edited, we've swelled up to about 780 as we're doing some formatting changes. Largely, we had to do a rewrite of one chapter that about doubled the length of it there. But yeah, so this entire thing is out there, but we're just releasing pretty much like between 1 and 3 chapters a day. And the projected conclusion of this guy is going to be probably by the end of March in 2020. If we keep going at the rate that we're going, we may finish as early as the end of February, but conservatively, I'd say March 31st is when my deadline for myself, by when I absolutely want to have this done. And yeah, so if you're interested, you can read all the stuff that we've done so far at ZachZYZ.com. Also, all my other books are available there. You can get the ebooks for free. They're on Amazon as well if you prefer a paper cover. And then on my YouTube, there are like a few stories I read that are not published as books. What do we have there? Although I think I might have put out an EPUB of one of them there. And everything is for free essentially. You know, I don't make a lot of money on writing, and I have a day job, so yeah, I don't need to fucking nickel and dime people for like $3. And you know, most people on the internet would just prefer to steal it anyway, so might as well be free. Okay, so in our next chapter, I think we discuss Dying Inside by Robert Silverberg, which if you've never read it, I think it's a fantastic book. It's really Silverberg's probably best work, and that's saying a lot because he was a very prolific writer, and he had a pretty consistent quality through his thing. There are certain types of writers out there that I'll talk about. You have some writers who are capable of just sitting down and writing for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. Nobody starts off that way, but they sort of build into it. And these are people who will just put out, some of these people will put out millions of words of published in their career. Most people, I want to say, can write for about an hour a day. And then they run out of mana. You can feel that sort of used up feeling when you're just running on empty in terms of creative energy and just can't put any more good on the page. I, over the years that I've been writing, have gotten to the point where I can write for about 3 hours a day before I hit that. I was originally I began writing because I met Ray Bradbury when I was a young man, and was like very inspired by my meeting with him. He's a wonderful man. And so he was like very similar in that he could write for about an hour a day, and then he would just be out of magic. So he mostly worked on short stories because that was what was profitable at the time there, and he had to support himself and his children and so forth. And he just tried to really be in the moment and capture that magic for that short window where he could be creative every day. And I think he did a fantastic job of it. He has some amazing short stories. Hold on, I think right over here. So recently I did a reading of the October Country right here. And these are his creepy stories. He loved horror and stuff like that. So let me see. So Jonah S. Spiller says, I'll read it on the site and check back in a few days. Yeah, go for it, man. If you have a hot second, please search for ZachZYZ on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. I would love to get to 100 subscribers so I can have a custom URL. I think we have 72 right now, so we have 28 to go. Hell yeah. But yeah, thanks to anybody who checks in here. And yeah, this stream is not meant to be like just stay here forever and while the hour's away. Just pop in if it's got nothing better going on. And I'm always happy to chat because I can stop working for like 2 seconds. All right, so this chapter is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 pages. And it's mostly talking about another work right here, which is, you don't always do that in writing. A lot of the times editors will be like, well, why don't you just create a fictional work that, you know, like this is really written for people who are established in the science fiction canon. I'm not looking for a tremendous amount of crossover appeal, but honestly, we spend like maybe less than 1% of the book talking about stuff like this. So I think we can skate on it for a reader that doesn't do science fiction, but we'll find out. It is something that a real editor might not go for. Okay, so now we're editing a chapter that I haven't read recently here. So our method is basically I read out each line, and we make changes where necessary. And just because we're like a little hanky today, we'll probably do this chapter again tomorrow. but we can get a good start on it today. So Dying Inside was a story of David Seelig. See, already. We're missing. What's the name of this? So I know the is the definite article. It's a preposition. Okay, I forgot what prepositions were. But yeah, we had left out this preposition right here. Dying Inside was a story of David Seelig, a neurotic mind reader who was slowly losing his power. Slowly losing his powers. So it's weird, right? David Seelig only has one power, and that's reading minds. But I don't think it tracks to say slowly losing his power. When you say it that way, you feel like, like he's like an automobile that, like the clutch is slipping or something like that. But when you say losing his powers, it's understood like we're talking about his mutant powers or whatever there. It's really weird how that needs to be plural for it to be understood what I mean there. So does it work better if we say a neurotic mind reader who is slowly losing his ability? Special ability? No, I think like the clearest and most concise way is slowly losing his powers. But yeah, it's a little weird that the language works that way. Dying Inside was the story of David Seelig, a neurotic mind reader who was slowly losing his powers. As Freya read through it, she could see why Randall had recommended it. As Freya read through the book, she could see why Randall had recommended it. The descriptions of telepathy were vivid and exciting. The main character's perspective was unique and achingly real. Oh, it totally is. This book, it's such a good book. David Seelig is such a loser. Really caught in this sort of neurotic, overbearing Jewish mother type situation. Oh, it's just astounding. The main character's perspective was unique and achingly real. She plowed through nearly 100 pages before the constant crushing sadness of the book began to get to her. She had a strange feeling of someone reading over her shoulder. Freya had a strange feeling of someone reading over her shoulder. A few times she looked around, expecting to find someone staring at her, but there was no one. The library was not very busy at all. The library was not very busy. It was mainly elderly people milling around the computer terminals and reading the periodicals. Freya closed the book and began to type in a note, thinking she ought to go ahead and call a taxi home. Before she could finish it, she had a sudden uneasy feeling in her stomach. It seemed like the whole room had darkened to shade, and she wondered if something was up with the It seemed like the whole room had darkened to shade, and she wondered if something was up with the electricity. But no one else was looking up. It had to be something like the time she'd read The Stand, and every sniffle had her convinced she'd contracted the superflu. She wondered if she should mention this to Dr. Garboglio. The down feeling had swelled up around her out of nowhere. Before she could forget what she meant to write, Freya completed the note about how Seelig reminded her of a cross between Professor X and Woody Allen. Maybe she could get a laugh. Maybe she could get a laugh from someone with that quip. But from who? Who was she taking these notes for anyway? She would never get to have that conversation. Randall was gone. She would never get to have that conversation. Randall was gone. When would she stop forgetting that 100 times a day? 100 letdowns, 100 disappointments. Nothing would ever be okay again 100 times over. Mm-hmm. 100 letdowns, 100 disappointments, 100 realizations that nothing would ever be okay again. She moved to leave, and the feeling of a shadow pressing down on her returned, until she slumped back into the seat. She didn't have anywhere to go. With a sigh, she flipped the book back open, finding her place. Within a few pages, the heavy feeling passed, and she started to feel better. Though the book became increasingly miserable as it slumped to its conclusion. See, we can't use slump twice there. Until she sighed back into her seat. Okay, cool. So I definitely want to use slumping to its conclusion here because I feel it's much more apt. And I think sighing back into her seat is fine there. I don't want to use settled back into her seat because she's unsettled at the moment, even though that's a little too clever by far. But though the book became increasingly miserable as it slumped to its conclusion, Freya found herself enjoying it more and more. At the end, her hands were trembling with excitement, and her heart was racing. Why do I feel like this? Silverberg was an even better writer than she thought. She couldn't remember the last time a book had affected her so physically. She took a deep breath, trying to center herself, and reflexively reached into her pocket for the star ball. It was hot. Not the usual distant warmth. Actually hot, like a stone that had been baking in the sun. Not hot enough to hurt, just enough that it couldn't possibly be her imagination. She glanced around the room, making sure no one was watching her, and drew it from her pocket and stared at her. Freya drew the star ball out and stared at it, turning it over and over in her palm. Externally, it was the same. Why was it so hot? She prodded it with her left index finger to confirm. She prodded it with her left index finger to confirm, but it was definitely warmer than she'd ever felt before. Was it trying to tell her something? Okay, so just an FYI, from the action in this book, and remind me about this later if I forget about it, Freya is definitely right-handed. So if later in the book we suddenly make her left-handed for some reason because I'm feeling that she's especially artistic or something about something. No, she's definitely right-handed. And, not to, I don't know, like how much of somebody's personality can you really ascribe to left-handedness? I definitely feel like left-handed people tend to be a little different than right-handed people. But I don't know if that's just ancient superstition or whether that's borne out by science or what the deal is. But yeah, like I think that's true, but I could easily be wrong. She glanced around the room, making sure no one was watching her. Freya drew the star ball out and stared at her, turning it over and over in her palm. Externally, it was the same. So why was it so hot? Externally, it was the same. Why was it so hot? She prodded it with her left index finger to confirm. She prodded the orb with her left index finger to confirm. It was definitely warmer than she'd ever felt before. Was the starball trying to tell her something? Am I in danger? She whispered, wondering if the orb was trying to warn her. Oh, so this right here, it's a little weird sounding, wondering if the orb was trying to warn her. It is a call out to a Monster Magnet song. Look to your orb for the warning. I think that's a Monster Magnet song. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's definitely a Monster Magnet. I love Monster Magnet. Dopes to Infinity was an amazing album. Really, it's probably my favorite album. From when I was like 15 years old. I definitely hitchhiked out to see them open for Marilyn Manson and copped a feel off of some girl in the audience, which I never should have done. Out of all the things I regret from my childhood, I thought that was like the creepiest thing I ever did. And I regret it. Apologies to a girl at a Monster Magnet concert fucking more than 20 years ago. I even felt bad afterward. I was like, what am I fucking doing here? I don't want to be that person. And I guess like every young man is going to have to come to like some point where he just does something that's out of boundaries and has to fucking decide like I don't want to be that person. And it never really ends too. The whole time when you're dating, you'll do things and then afterward be like, why did I do that? You know, why did I push those boundaries there? Why couldn't I just be decent? And I don't think that you get a little better at being decent as you get older, and less of you is ruled by like this constant raging hormonal gotta fuck, gotta fuck, gotta fuck. But the struggle is always there, and I think just the struggle just moves to being more like not being emotionally shitty to people and respecting their feelings and so forth, and not using people. But yeah, the struggle is always there, not to be a piece of shit, and definitely I have not always succeeded in that struggle, and I'm probably gonna fuck up again. But I don't want to be a piece of shit in that way, especially not to women. And I don't know. It came up the other day because I was just thinking about this woman who was like really into me at the time. I was just doing a lot of dating on OkCupid and stuff. It had been like maybe like a couple years since I had a big relationship breakup, but I was still like not ready to date or whatever. And at the time I was like very depressed, and I went out with this girl like a few times, and we wound up sleeping together, and it wasn't like stellar, and like I just kind of slow faded out of her life. I was just, like spaced out the time between calls, was like more non-committal with texting, just being, which is the common like cowardly kind of, yeah, like what if, hopefully you're not interested in me and I'm not interested in you, and we'll just let this thing peter out. But she was not having that, and definitely was like, yo, you need to like actually come out and break up with me, because like I don't just sleep with like everybody that I meet, and like I had like an emotional connection to you that it's obviously not reciprocated, and so I had to like go through and like break up with her. And but then she kept trying to have a relationship after that, and it was obvious like she just like had caught some feelings that I just didn't share at all, and I just handled it poorly. I told her I was gonna move out of the country. And I was honestly considering it at the point because I was like really depressed then. So I didn't move out of the country, and I just continued dating, and, you know, railed a lot of other women and just kept doing my thing, for about 3 years after I broke up with, from this really long relationship I had. I just went on like a tremendous tear of just, banging anyone who would bang me back, basically. And I just continued doing that. But then this woman became a moderator on OkCupid, and she started banning me from the site for ghosting her. She was just like upset about the whole thing, and I couldn't even really get mad about it because yeah, I had definitely done her dirty. But yeah, like I had never done anything on that site to merit banning. I don't like send people pictures of my penis or neg them or do any of that bullshit there. I usually try to be pretty nice to people. So it was definitely like a revenge hit. And I was like, oh, I'll just make another fucking account. No big deal. But she definitely like found that one too and zapped it and let me know via text that she was doing it. It was quite a situation right there. All right, what have I talked about here? Let me see. Yeah, there's an appetites at play that you can't easily suppress when you're young, and you got to kind of bungle out figuring out how to behave. Shout out to Cold Sunday in there. I think Cold Sunday has come through here before, but I'm not quite sure. And then Cam the Cam and Cam says, I have issues trusting women I'm in relationships with. Her pressing me for the breakup was unnecessary. No, I don't think so. I think it's okay for anybody to be like, hey, if we're not dating anymore, can you just tell me? I need closure. I respect people's desire to have closure, but I think all too often people who want closure, what they really want is another angle to try and get back into the relationship. I definitely had this one woman that we only dated for like 4 months, but I was hung up on this girl for like a year, and I kept sending her like mixtapes and sad fucking letters and everything and emailing her. And she never told me like, hey, stop fucking emailing me or anything like that. If she had, I would have just, stopped right away. But like every 3 months or something like that, I'd just be like missing her and send her some letter or something like that. And from time to time, she would respond, usually not. And finally, I was just like, what am I doing? But yeah, if she like wrote me out of the blue or something like that today, even though I'm like very happy with the person I'm seeing, I wouldn't go see this woman again. But I'd still be happy to hear from her. I still like that person. I still really care about him. So if I would have heard her say, I don't sleep with just anyone, I would have assumed the opposite to be true, says Cam the Cam Man Cam. I don't know. The like yeah, I don't know. Definitely it's hard to trust people, especially after you've gotten burned a few times. But a little bit of having a long relationship is sort of believing the other person's hype, like going along with things that aren't necessarily true, and just kind of going along with it because you're building a relationship together, and the relationship should largely be based on truth as much as is possible, but it's not fully possible to have an entirely truthful relationship. And at least part of that relationship is going to be each of you believing in the myth of the relationship, sort of like the way that we all believe in the national myth that America's the best. Hell yeah, we take on every other country in the world at once. Hot damn. Like, that's a really important thing. There's a lot of power in believing that myth, even if like we do a bunch of dirt and so forth. We still, the reason why we're still together as a country is like we all have this belief that we're the greatest, and that myth is important. Like, it was the breakdown of that myth. That's why we don't have a USSR anymore, and relationships are kind of similar. You have to believe the hype that you love each other and that things are going to be okay, even if it's obviously not the case. And if you believe in that myth hard enough and both people are on board, you really can make that myth true just by dint of your shared belief in it. So currently reporting or accepting that you're not that hype yourself. Currently reporting load as a communist. Yeah, I've been through the ringer on this. Yeah, like still in my friend group, there aren't a ton of people who have had like a relatively healthy relationship for as long as I have. Like 12 years is a long fucking time to be with somebody and keep them putting up with your bullshit, especially when you're yours truly. Like, I'm not trying to suck my own dick here, but like definitely living with me is a special case of difficult. So really got to put the work in. All right, let's try to get through this chapter though. I really enjoy that conversation though. I was so happy for all the people that are involved with fucking LRH. Like me last night wearing his poncho, running out there to confront a van full of pedophiles who were not pedophiles, by the way. It just makes me so fucking happy. We had like a ridiculous, somebody recorded a diss rap against Eraser and it was awful, like the most god awful thing. But he had gone all the way to the other side into where it was so bad that it was good. And so he absolutely, like, Vladimir absolutely was like, I'm going to make something that is so trash that it's amazing. And he did it. He succeeded. So shout outs to him for pulling that off. It's not easy. So Cam just says they were just Mexicans. I liked those people, just like looking at them coming out of their van. They had their trailer all set up. They were ready to go and everything. You should have given them the fucking ATV, Meep. I don't know why you're so greedy. So shout outs to Rogue Editor. They're in the chat. I definitely remember this character. All right, let's see if we can do some rogue editing on our own. Am I in danger? She whispered, wondering if the orb was trying to warn her. Freya glanced up, expecting the ceiling to be swallowed by the starless void, but everything was normal. So I like this one because we cut out the other like instance of the void. Let's try to keep it to one mention of void per chapter. But also, like, I like a little bit where she's questioning her own reality right here. This is the part of the, yeah, they were super, I don't know, the next time something like that is happening, try to get their license plate number or something like that. And let's send them like a basket of, sopapillas or whatever they like, like cans of Goya or something like that. Let's dox them and then send them nice things. Let's just try to get some info or some kind of way to contact those people, and then do something cool for them in the background. You know what I mean? Because I don't want the people to like come through here where they're chill and like go away empty-handed. Let's we could really turn it into a thing where we do this tribulation upon the people, but then turns around and we do something really nice for them. I like the idea of that. Hmm. Just give them first dibs on more free shit. You may not know what we're really all about here, Rogue Editor. This is a whole other thing that we got going on there. Am I in danger? She whispered, wondering if the orb was trying to warn her. Am I in danger? She muttered, wondering if the orb was trying to warn her. Freya glanced up. So muttered is a weird choice there. But I don't want her to whisper. And now whispered is... Yeah, under her breath is like a little bit better. Oh, no. No, Rogue Editor does know what's going on with LRH right there. Mexicans love bikes and free shit. No new One Piece this year. Okay, so he does. Rogue Editor does know what we're all about there. Never gonna escape who I am. Freya glanced up, expecting the ceiling to be swallowed by the starless void, but everything was normal. Has she lost it, talking to her pet rock from outer space? Was she just imagining all this? She looked... Okay. Has she finally lost it, talking to her pet rock from outer space? She looked down at her phone. Freya looked... there we go. Freya looked down at her phone. Dr. Garboglio said she could call any time, but as she considered it, she could feel the sick feeling building in her stomach again. It was a terrible idea. Telling any of this would be an immediate trip to a mental hospital. It was a terrible idea. Telling Dr. Telling him anything would be... As she finally lost it, talking to her pet... Freya was now talking to her pet rock from outer space. She'd finally lost it. She looked down at her phone. Dr. Garboglio had said she could call any time, but as she considered it, she could feel that sick feeling building in her stomach again. It was a terrible idea. Telling a psychiatrist any part of this was an immediate ticket to a mental hospital. Yeah. Lasso was gone. There would be no one to get her out. She stuck the phone back in her pocket. Freya stuck the phone back in her pocket, and the uneasy feeling in her stomach began to abate. She was starting to be very weirded out by these sudden shifts. It wasn't like her. Was it another side effect of the Lunestral withdrawal? Or was it linked to the orb getting hot? She had no answers for any of this. Hmm. Freya had no answers. At last, all she could think to do was to pick up the copy of Dying Inside and walk it over to the returns desk. Maybe it was cursed and she'd feel better once she was rid of it. She'd been so lost in thought that she didn't thought to wait until the librarian's attention was elsewhere. Too late, she realized she should have waited until the librarian's attention was elsewhere. Ah, not for you? Mm-hmm. Ah, not for you? The librarian asked, looking a little disappointed. Oh, no, I really got into it. I just finished. Killed up? Oh my god. I have to sneeze. I have no nose, but I must sneeze. Good God. All right. There was a moment where the librarian was clearly wondering if that was possible, but then she glanced at the clock and nodded. I didn't realize it had gotten so late. You're a fast reader. What did you think? It's very stark. The mind reading scenes were so vivid, but the rest of the story was so bleak. The mind reading scenes were incredibly vivid, but the rest of the story was so bleak. The protagonist reminds me of a cross between Professor X and Woody Allen. Freya got her laugh after all, though the librarian covered her mouth and she was quick about it. That's grand. You should write a review. It's been almost 20 years since I read it, but I can still remember the scene at the farm and some of his interactions with his sister, Judith, Freya reminded her. Judith, Freya reminded her. That's it. The part where she realizes Selig is reading her mind, so she floods his head with disgusting images. I'll never forget that. It's a really exceptional book. Have you read More Than Human? No. Is that another Silverberg? It's by Theodore Sturgeon. Okay. Is that another Silverberg? Theodore Sturgeon. It's about a psychic gestalt made up of runaways. It's a much different style, but very thought-provoking. Then if you want a gestalt of a far grander scope, you might like Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon. It's incredible, like nothing else I've ever read. I'll add those to my list, thank you. Freya had her phone out. She was tapping on the recommendations. Oh, that's so clever. I should do that, the librarian said. I loved Never Let Me Go. It was just so haunting. Freya looked up, suddenly alarmed. The librarian could read upside down. She had been watching Freya as she typed. She had been watching as Freya typed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude, she said, immediately realizing she'd overstepped. I get carried away talking about books. No, it's totally okay. You're Lynn Harris's sister, right? Yes, I'm Lee. Very nice to meet you. Lee extended a hand over the counter, and Freya reached out to shake it. She seemed surprised to be recognized, but in a pleasant way. The familial resemblance was only there if you were really looking for it. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you at first. You've grown so much since the last time I saw you here. Your father was one of the biggest readers in town. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you at first. You've grown so much since the last time I saw you. Your dad was one of the biggest readers in town. He was such a good man. Freya caught a little twinge in the way Lee said that, as if she thought most men weren't very good at all. I'm sorry for your loss, Lynn finished. It's okay, thank you, said quietly. She desperately wanted to escape. I'll check and see if those are on the shelves. Both of them were. They were both trade paperbacks in the Golan's science fiction masterwork series. She checked them out and added them. Freya checked them out and added them to her pile of books back on the table. She'd been thinking she would go home and drop her books off before she went to the party, but now she wasn't so sure she would go out again if she went home. She didn't know what that strange feeling was all about. Maybe there was something wrong with her. If she went straight to the party with a giant pile of books, the boys there would definitely make comments. Then she remembered that Dan had the fragile phoenix. She'd been pushing that problem out of her mind all day. She could just go home and not deal with any of it. She could text Dan and ask him to bring the book to school tomorrow. Now that he knew she was nuts, he'd probably be relieved if she didn't come. Then she thought it was even easier than that. She didn't even have to text him. She could tell Dr. Garbuglio she'd lost her copy. He had a whole shelf of them. She never had to talk to Dan Gregulus again. Take a chance. She didn't have to go home and hide. She could just suck it up. Maybe Dan hadn't even opened the book. Maybe he didn't give a shit. Maybe it didn't matter either way, and she just wanted to hang out with a bunch of guys and watch men in a cage beat each other half to death. She looked at her stack of books, wishing she had a grocery bag or something. She looked at her stack of books and wished she had a grocery bag or something. It dawned on Freya, that she could get a grocery bag at the grocery store. She could show up with some food and everyone would be happy about it. She'd thought she might never eat again after breakfast, but that was a whole novel ago. She was already starting to get hungry again. If people were busy eating, they wouldn't have time to notice she was awkward as hell. She waved goodbye to Lee Harris and set off for the supermarket. Okay, so I think I think a lot of her internal monologues are excessive. Like, we'll repeat the same thing like 2 or 3 times. And I think it's worthwhile to do another round of editing here. But I'm recognizing, I didn't get like a ton of sleep last night, and I'm not batting 1,000. So I do think that we managed to get some good changes here. I was happy to talk with people. Let's take a look at this chapter and see whether it needs to be in the book. So it absolutely does. And I want to tell you, there's a plot reason why we go into this book here, Dying Inside. Lee Harris is not like a huge character later in the book. In fact, this may be the only time that she's there, but I do kind of like this character. I like the interaction that they have right here. Yeah, I'm a fan of this chapter. I think it's worth staying in. And I was worried that we would go too heavy on the Silverberg. But yeah, I think this is an okay interaction at a library, and it feels very homey. One thing that we might try to do here is we don't talk at all about the setting at this point. which I guess has been established in the previous chapters, but I don't think that there are any. If we look through this chapter, there's an uneasy feeling in her stomach, but we don't really talk about our setting at all. Like, this is all very internal to the character's head. And I think we could definitely stand to put in like a sentence or two about what's going on outside of the library, or like a little bit of just a little bit more about the other patrons, what they're doing in the library. So let's make our notes for this. I want to re-edit this chapter tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to work on the last half and trim a little bit there. Okay, cool. So not leaping progress today, but we did manage to get a bit of this like sorted out here. Potentially we could, it feels a little labored that we don't get the Lee Harris's name off a little bit, but I think we're okay there. All right, well, thank you for everybody who tuned in here. We do this every single day, rain or shine. Drunk or sober, apparently. So I'm going to go cook up steak and some eggs, and hopefully a bunch of grease and eggs will make me feel much better. Yeah, join us every morning for this thing. Again, if you haven't already subscribed on YouTube, I would love it if you did. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers to get the custom URL. It's really annoying to not have that. Yeah, we've made some progress here. Let me know. Feel free to just, you can always email me at zach@zachzyd.com, or message me on IRC or something like that if you know where I'm at, or tweet at me at zachzyz if you have some whatever. Yeah, let me know what you thought about the idea of getting a real editor to come through here and just shit on what I'm doing, but to also issue some corrections on what we're doing there. I don't know any editors that I'm like close enough with that would actually do this. Most of them are like too busy for this, or are like, frankly, like a little out of my league on this motherfucker, or just don't want to be on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. So we'll see. All right, but yeah, this is it for today. Let me see how long we got. I can't read it from here, but I think we went about 2 hours. So good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow.